Good afternoon, everyone. We want to welcome you to the second Dairy Leaders of Tomorrow virtual farm tour. We are excited that you joined us this afternoon as we not only take a dairy farm tour, but also explore some careers within the dairy industry by meeting a few dairy professionals who work directly with the dairy farmers that we're going to meet this afternoon. Today's tour would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors, Hydrate and Zoetis. Anyone that's new to the Dairy Leaders of Tomorrow, this program is provided by the Dairy Excellence Foundation from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and it is available to students and teachers all across the country. The Dairy Leaders of Tomorrow program is a comprehensive and designed specifically to prepare high school students to pursue careers in the dairy industry. It uses a three-part model and offers classroom curriculum, scholarships for educators and students, and on-farm experiences just like we get to experience today. We welcome you to check out our website at www.dairyleadersoftomorrow.com. You can learn more about the program and see if this curriculum would be a good fit for your classroom. If you haven't already, we'd encourage you to click the red subscribe button at the top of our YouTube channel so that you can get notified of future virtual events. Those of you joining us live today, you will have the ability to chat questions and comments. Feel free to use the live comment stream to comment or ask those questions throughout the tour. We're excited to hear what questions you have, and I know our farmers are excited to be answering them. One other quick note, we do have a discussion guide that is available to follow along with today's tours. It's an interactive tool that goes over the topics from the tour, reviews key points made during each career rotation, and provides direct links to the Kahoot that we're going to play at the end of today's tour. So you don't want to miss that. It also includes additional links to learn more about the careers that are discussed today. If you need the link to that discussion guide, it is in the description of the YouTube video. You can find it on the DLT Farm Tour page. And also it is in the informational email that was sent to you prior to today's tour. Don't forget to download it first and save it as a PDF to your computer before editing and filling it out. If you open it on the web, it will not save your answers. So this afternoon, we are back in the southwest region of Pennsylvania. We are visiting a farm called Pennwood Farms. There's a picture of that. It's a beautiful day in southwest PA. You can see, I think, yep, there we go, a picture where the farm is located in Pennsylvania. We are excited to be touring Pennwood Farms, owned by and operated by the Stoltzfus family. They are actually in Berlin, PA, and they house 600 milking cows in a freestall barn and milk in a Rotary parlor. And we're going to get an actual live tour today. So without further ado, we're going to kick this virtual farm tour off by meeting Andrea Stoltzfus. And she's going to give us some background of their farm, and then she's going to take us on a tour. So welcome, Andrea.
Hello, how is everyone today? I hope that if you're joining us live, you will truly have a chance to take home some great information about our family's farm. And when I say our family, I would like to share with you that there's so many farms in Pennsylvania that are owned by families just like ours. We are currently in our third and fourth generation of farmers with the Stoltzfus family. My husband farms here with his three brothers in a partnership, and they have been here since 1999 when we moved here from Morgantown, Pennsylvania. We started out there in the early 60s with only 6 cows. Now we milk 600 cows. The reason we moved, we had a lot of interest in farming and there wasn't a lot of farm ground available for the family to expand. And in order for us to expand and keep our family involved in the operation, we needed to move. So we moved all the way west to Somerset County, Pennsylvania, to a Century Farm. We started with just a main barn, a shop, and a little couple outbuildings. And ever since then, we have been building and adding on and expanding to meet our needs as our farm has changed. So one of the first things we had to build, obviously, was a milking parlor. So when we built our milking parlor, we needed to decide how we wanted to build that and make the most use of our labor and our space and our time. And we decided to go with a Rotary parlor. Sometimes it's called excuse me, a carousel parlor. Sometimes it's called a merry-go-round because that's exactly what it is. It is a circle and our cows face in, and there are 28 stalls on this circle. 28 cows can be on the parlor at the same time, and actually only 25 of them can be milked because 3 of them the cows have to get off and 1 of them the cows have to get on. We have one person inside the parlor building, and he's the one who actually puts the milkers on the cow, and another person, the other employee, goes and gathers the cows from the milk from the freestall, brings them up and cleans up the freestall after they leave their area, and then he comes up and helps. So labor wise, it was very efficient for us to do it that way. So I'm going to open up the door, and what you'll see is the carousel parlor, and we are about 4 hours in. We have 600 cows that go through this parlor every single day, 3 times a day. We milk at 2 a.m., we milk at 10 a.m., and we milk again at 6 p.m. So we're coming towards the end or middle of the day milking. So the parlor may not be quite as clean as when we started today, but at the end of every milking, we clean the entire parlor. We wash down all the surfaces. We clean up all of the milk lines themselves and flush them out with soap and water and a sanitizer so that everything stays clean and as healthy as we can get it for the next time the milk goes through. It is washed completely 3 times a day as well. And from start to finish, from the time we walk in the door and get started to getting out the door, it's close to 6.5, 7 hours by the time we finish. And again, it's only 2 people involved in the actual milking. And then there's other people involved in our property. We have probably between 10 and 15 employees, full-time and part-time, that help us run our operation. We have thousands of acres that are both owned and rented, and we go 10 miles north from this property and 10 miles almost down into Maryland. So we have a lot of travel time and a lot of acres to take care of, but we need all that to make the feed for our cows. So we're going to open up the door. We're going to check out our carousel parlor. And again, it is running. It'll be a little bit loud, perhaps. I'm not sure how much noise we can cancel out with our mic, but there's definite some sound here. And there will be cows on the parlor being milked. So we'll walk in and we'll see what's going on. So I'm not sure where, Emily, I'm not sure where you want to stand. But what we have here is our cows, and this is towards the end of the milking. When I say the milking and the merry-go-round, it takes approximately 8.5 to 10 minutes for this circle to go a complete rotation. During that time, the cow is standing up, they're facing the front, and they are being milked. But the milk is actually only being, the milker is only on their body for approximately 3 to 5 minutes. The rest of the time is just the time it takes for it actually to spin. As each cow comes onto the parlor, you'll see that on her front leg, I'm not sure if Emily can zoom in on her front leg, there's something that we call a activity monitor, which is basically a fancy word for a Fitbit. And what the Fitbit does is it measures her steps, it measures her activity, and it also keeps a computer chip in there of her record that goes into our system. So we can always look on a computer system and tell you exactly what that animal is, how many hours she's been standing up, if she's been laying down a lot, how many pounds of milk she has. Now, as the machines actually come off on their own, as the milk flow decreases in the cow's udder, the milking machine can actually sense that and it removes itself from the udder. The cows are not milked for a long time at all. Again, it's between a 2 and a 3 minute time period. The number you see up on that square where it says 24, that is how many pounds of milk that cow just gave to us. So to help you out, 1 pound of milk is about, 1 gallon of milk is about 8.2 pounds. So she just gave us 3 gallons and she comes through here 3 times a day. So a little math problem, she's giving you 9 gallons, and this is a group that is not milking very heavily. So we do have some animals here that produce up to 100 pounds of milk a day. And that is coming through here 3 times. The amount of milk an animal can produce depends on her age. It depends on her heritage. It depends on what stage of pregnancy she's in. And so all of that has a number that we can track and see exactly what's going on with her as we look at the number there. So our parlor is not actually spinning right this minute. We're waiting for some animals to come up. We're at the end of our milking day, and the animals that are left in our holding area know that we're at the end, and they're being a little reluctant to join us today. But from the time that, can you zoom right there, Emily, and see that's going to come off right there? I don't know if you got to see it. It's kind of hung up right there. So let's follow us over here. So right here, you can see the milk is actually coming out of the cow's udder. There's a very gentle squeezing motion. That's all it is a very gentle vacuum. What that does is it actually gently vacuum. It squeezes. It's basically squeezing very gently. The milk is coming out of the machine. It travels down into here and up through here. There's actually a little weigh jar down here that actually does the measuring. You can see the milk is still flowing through there. From there, it actually goes into this particular pipe. And from there, it's pumped to the center, up to the top, across the ceiling. And then we have 8,000 gallons of storage in our milk house that we are able to store our milk at between 35 and 42 degrees, because that is the safest temperature to keep the milk healthy and safe for you. As I said, the milk never ever touches a human's hand until you open it at your breakfast table or your supper table. When you turn the cap or you put the carton off, that's the very first time the milk ever sees a human. The milk is safely removed from the cow into the machine, into our bulk tank. From there, it's actually put into the bulk tank, to the truck. The truck hauls it to the dairy. They process it there into all of the things that milk can be made into. And it actually does not come anywhere near humans until you open it up. It is what's supposed to be one of the safest foods on the planet. So,
Andrea?
Yes.
Somebody has a question. How many cows can you milk in the parlor at one time?
Okay, so this parlor has 28 stalls. Only 25 of them, 24 actually, can be milked, because there's 3 stalls where they actually go backwards and exit, and 1 stall where they come forward and walk onto the parlor. And as they walk on, there's actually a little computer reader that will read their Fitbit and record that data into each individual milking machine. That's how they know who is who and how much milk they've just given us. Maybe we can come over if the parlor spins and we'll be able to see them back up. So the bar here obviously keeps them safe and keeps them enclosed, but as the parlor spins, the bars stop. So they're able to actually just step backwards. And when they step backwards, they walk right off into a landing here, and then they walk back to their house. And again, they're not here very long in this particular part of the building at all. Oh, Emily, if you can see that gate going up, that is actually our next group of cows coming in. You can see they're in a hurry. They're excited to be going through the parlor. Some of them are not. Look at them just stand there, just, checking things out. But the rest of the girls are going to join us. They're going to walk right in. There's no pushing. There's no shoving. Oh, there's some pooping, though. There's no pushing. There's no shoving. There's no yelling. The animals are very excited to come to the parlor every day. You can see them. They're all very comfortable. They're all quiet. They're not running. They're not causing a big scene. That one is going to look at Emily because they're not used to seeing extra people in the parlor. And then she's just going to walk away. There's one alleyway that walks all the way back to their barn. And then they return back. They usually get a big drink of water, maybe have a snack, and then they lay down. That's basically what the cow's day is made up of. They eat, they drink, they come to the parlor, and they rest. As you can see, they're all very enthusiastic about coming into the parlor. Our cows are very quiet. One of the things about animal handling is you want to make sure that you're quiet around the animals. That makes them feel comfortable. It makes the humans feel comfortable. It gives them a safe place to be.
And you said the cows come in here 3 times every day, correct?
3 times every day. Yes, our milking crew starts at 1 a.m. and usually there's cows going through the parlor by 1:30, 2 o'clock after they get everything set up from the wash cycle. And then they're wrapping things up about 7. The parlor is washed again. That's when the milk truck comes and pumps all the milk onto his truck to take it to the dairy. And then we start again every day, 365 days. 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Somebody asked, do you bottle your own milk? And so right there, you explained that your milk truck comes and takes it to the plant where they turn it into various dairy products.
Right. So our milk is shipped through a co-op of other milk producers on the East Coast and the Mid-Atlantic region. It's called Maryland, Virginia. And depending on where the need is greatest, that is where our milk goes. In the past, our milk has historically gone down to Baltimore. It's actually gone down to the Carolinas. Sometimes it goes down into Florida and down the South, depending on where there is a need for milk that they cannot get their own milk. Maryland, Virginia has a system of logistics that they're able to put milk into the dairies that need it the most. And so our milk is pumped out every single day in the morning onto a tanker truck. And then the tanks are washed and sanitized before the next milk goes in them. And we're able to start again. But they take the milk to whatever dairy needs it. Sometimes it's here in Pennsylvania, but it's always within 10, 15 hours away tops. So when milk arrives at the plant, it has come from a location very close to you. There's very little travel time for milk because we are in a part of the country that is easy to get to a dairy processing plant.
Somebody asked about, I know you showed us this a little bit ago, how it just gently squeezes, but they wanted to know this doesn't harm the cows, correct?
Absolutely not. And so the cows themselves are very used to being handled. They're used to being milked. And if you were to put, I'll do it. I'll put my finger right into this machine. Is a very gentle sucking. It is not like a vacuum cleaner where you feel like you're just going to lose your arm by any means. You can barely feel any sort of a suction, but that's what's actually used is a little bit of vacuum. It actually just is a very gentle pulsating, and that's what it is. It just pulses and it squeezes. And the animals themselves are used to the machines. You can see how quiet they are. They're not in any sort of distress. And the only reason they're still here is because we're still waiting for that other group to come up and to fill up the holes. Excuse me. And now it'll spin again, because once the other group comes and there's 100 cows in that group, once they're all here, we'll get things moving and they'll move a little faster. And we do have two types of breeds here. We do have a Jersey cow right here on the parlor now. And then we have a Holstein cow as well. So we have two different breeds just because of preference. Not every dairy has two different. We just happen to have two. Wait, when this comes around here. I just want to show you too, this big jar right here, we call it a receiving jar. And this is actually the milk line. So all of the milk that has come from the cows is currently sitting in this spot right here. And when it gets to about here, it senses it and it will pump it from that receiving jar up into the bulk tank. So when a cow's milk comes out of her, it is 100 degrees. A cow's inner temperature is 100 degrees. So the milk exiting is 100 degrees. We need to get that milk from 100 degrees down to 35 degrees. So it is a safe temperature and it holds at a safe temperature. So we need to get it from the cow into our cooling unit as fast as possible. And once it's in the bulk tank, it has a constant chilling unit that keeps it cold. It agitates it so the milk is always moving. It never gets stagnant, and it keeps it at a safe temperature so that when it gets up from that tank into the driver's truck, it takes it to the dairy and it arrives in a safe temperature also. Yeah, let's keep going. So I think we're going to go from here. We'll actually go out to the barn and we'll see where these guys spend the rest of their day. Again, they're only in this particular unit for 10 minutes tops. And the rest of the time they're spent in their Freestall barn. And by Freestall, it just means they're free to move around. So that's where we're going to go next.
Andrea, while you're walking there, somebody wants to know, can a cow be milked without having a baby? And for about how many years do they give milk for?
Oh, those are excellent questions. First off, a cow does not give milk until she has given birth for the first time. So we generally, our cows generally have their first babies when they're 2 years old. We raise all of our baby calves until they are an older animal, until they're ready to go into the milking herd. So when we get to the baby calves, you'll see just how little and what size they are. But it takes about 2 years for an animal to truly mature and become a member of our working production units here. And during that time, that's what they're doing. They're growing, they're maturing, and they have access to as much feed and as much space as they want. And we keep the baby calves and the cows here. We have several other farms where they transition to as they're in that growing process. And once they're milked and in our milking herd, their lifetime here, we do have one animal here who is 11 We have another animal who's actually 13. And the average age of our cows here is probably between 4 and 6 years old. So we have a large group of animals that are older. And the reason we just have that is because we have a breeding program that we like our animals to be long-lived. We want them to stay a long, healthy life here at Pennwood as long as they can. And we want them to be able to enjoy their time while they're here. But they cannot give any milk until they've had that first baby when they're 2. We let them have those 2 years just to kind of goof off, I guess, and grow. And then once they're here, they become a member of the working population. So what you see here is we have 2 things going on. We have a large barn here. Our barn is actually the same size as a football field. So all of you that are watching from around the state, around the country, wherever you are, whatever football field you follow, whatever team, home, college, NFL, you can fit this barn on that stadium. This is a 350-foot long by 110 feet wide and includes the end zones. So if you're watching your NFL games on Sunday and you look at everyone playing, 100 yards end to end zone is from this door all the way to the other door. So we have 4 separate groups here. They're currently over here on the right. That is the group that has just left. They are now on their way to the parlor. They're about to be milked, which is a little disappointing because we have this really cool brush. And when they walk up into it, it actually is a touchless brush. Once they touch it, they actually brush themselves. But everyone over here has just come from the parlor. And they're finishing up their snacks. We feed twice a day, but the food is always in front of them 24 hours a day. So we're reaching the end of the day. And what they've done is they've picked the good stuff out and they pushed it away. And everything that's left is kind of like trail mix when you pick out all the good stuff and what's left is, you're like, oh, do you really want that? I don't want that. So what we do is we gather all that up and then we actually are able to use it in another mix and another ration. You'll be able to hear more about that with Jason and his nutrition program in a little bit. But all of our feed is grown here. And then we add things called commodities to help balance it out for a nutritional ration for every cow. My husband does all of the rationing and he makes sure that each cow has a good balance of vitamins, minerals, and all the nutrition they need to remain healthy and to be a working member of our cow society here. But as you can see, they're all happy to be back. They're quiet. Some of them are seeing what's going on with me. I'm not usually here in the barn talking, so that's pretty new and novel for them. And the rest are down here just eating. There's a lot that are laying down, and they have 3 waterers. They have access to free choice fresh water all year round. And when I say all year round, the water does not freeze in this barn. We live in Southwest Pennsylvania where it is a temperature range in the winter anywhere from 0 and below to 30 or 40 given the day. So what happens in this barn is they don't move to a warmer barn. We make the barn warmer for them. So on the sides, we have 2 sets of curtains that are actually on a thermostat. When the thermostat senses that the temperature has dropped below freezing, it automatically closes the curtains and the barn is closed in. When it senses that it's warmer than that, it'll open up the air, the curtain, and the air will start to flow through here. But it's very important to have good ventilation for cows. They need that to keep their lungs healthy and their systems healthy. That's why we have fans running too. There's fans located all the way through this barn, and 2 rows of them. And even in the summer when the wind is blowing through here, we have fans running all the time because we want to keep them as cool as possible. Cows produce a lot of heat. And when you get a lot of cows in a small space like this, or even a bigger space like all of them, it gets a little bit warm in here. And you want to make sure that the air continues to move and they stay healthy and breathing good air. Just like you always want to have, a little bit of air and ventilation in your homes. A little trickier to do with 400 or 500 cows in a space, but we make sure that they have plenty of access to air. Let's see what else. If Emily can zoom in, we can talk about their ear tags. So every cow on our property has her own name. She has a number, and she has an individual long ID number that is also recorded at a organization that keeps track of their pedigrees and helps us register all the animals. So the big number is 6917. That's what we call her, but she actually has a name. Her mother's name is above that, and it would start with the letter M because that is how we name our animals. Her father's name is Brewmaster, and it also has her birthday on there. And if she stopped flopping her ear, we could maybe see what it is. So she is a 2-year-old cow. and I will be able to tell that as long as she has that ear tag in her ear. The smaller tag at the top actually has a electronic chip in it. And if this animal ever leaves our property, we sell her for any reason, we'll be able to know that she actually originated here at Pennwood Farm, just because that number has been recorded and we're able to track that in case anything ever happened and we need to worry about them. Now they do lose their tags because then we want to make sure they still have an ID, because you don't want to say that black and white cow or that brown cow. You want to make sure that you have some sort of a actual identifier with them, because to a lot of people, they all look the same. But if you look at the black and white cows here, there are no animals that are actually marked exactly the same. And you'll find that across the world. Holsteins will never have the exact same markings. They will have similar ones within families, and you can tell, but you will never have the same pattern. They're like a fingerprint. They're individual. The jerseys are a little more similar, but they are all different. If you look at them close, they're all different.
Yes, so that brought up a good point. Somebody had asked about the two breeds, which you mentioned earlier. Of the two breeds, does one breed tend to give more milk than another on your farms?
So the Holstein breed as a whole produces the most milk of all of the dairy breeds, and that is what the majority of dairy farms have across the country. The Jersey produces a milk that's very rich in butter fat. So a lot of dairies will have a Jersey line or Jersey herd, and they increase the butter fat. And that's the things that makes those really tasty ice cream and some of the other products that come from milk. The butter fat actually increases the ability to make those. We prefer, as you can see, they're also smaller. And so they have a little bit of a smaller footprint, literally. They don't take up as much space, they don't eat quite so much, but they still produce a great deal of milk, and they are able to convert the feed very efficiently. It was just a matter of preference. My sister-in-law many, many years ago loved a Jersey, fell in love with the breed, and that's why we have so many. They have just multiplied, and her children have now added to their family as adding Jerseys. So that's why we have both. Holsteins will come in two colors, though. They come in black and white and red and white, and we do have both here on our farm.
Can you tell us how much water a cow drinks in a day?
Yes, so a very good visual is picture your bathtub in your house. If you still have a bathtub is about 55 gallons of water. That is what a cow will drink on an average day. Now, if it's super hot, it'll drink more. Even in the winter, they'll drink close to that because they are still thirsty. It's just like drinking your own water. You want to make sure you stay hydrated. So that is how much they will drink, is 55 gallons of water on average every single day. And these cows will eat almost 100 pounds of feed every single day.
That's a lot.
Yes. And so before we leave on this side, all of the animals have left this side of the building, and our employee is going to take the skid loader. He's going to scrape all the manure from that side of the barn. He's going to scrape it down into a underground tunnel, which eventually turns and gets out into our holding area. And you'll also see that later on the tour. So when you see the big manure lagoon in a little bit, you'll know that eventually it started right here. We want to make sure the cows stay as clean, as comfortable as possible. As the employee brings a group out, he scrapes all of the manure out of their own stalls. And there's actually mattresses in those stalls as well. And so the animals can sleep in those stalls, stay comfortable, and he scrapes it out, and then he comes through with his skid loader and he's going to scrape all of the loose manure. He does that every day, 3 times a day, and that keeps them as clean as we can. The only time we run into a problem is if it gets cold, because frozen manure does not flow very well.
And can you give us a little bit of insight on, we have quite a few people asking why the cows live in the barn and not out in the pasture?
Okay, so I mentioned the weather, and there's 2 things about the weather. If we had all of these cows exposed to our winter weather in Somerset County, it would really be kind of detrimental to their health. Keeping them in the barn keeps them safe, it keeps them secure, it keeps them warm, it keeps them healthy, and it allows us to make sure that all of those things take place. If we were to have them outside on pasture, we'd have to worry about footing, we'd have to worry about the icy ground, the snow, the blizzards. And in the summer, it's the exact opposite. It gets pretty warm out here, and you always have to worry about excess sun. Are they getting enough water? Are they getting enough feed? So we do have animals on a pasture. We actually have all of our heifers, which are the animals younger than 2 years old. They are on a pasture and have access to shelter as well. And then our cows that we call dry, which are maternity leave, also are on the pasture. We'll see them. I hope they'll be out in the pasture as well. But as a general rule, all of our cows are under the roof. They're safe, and they they're very content. You can see they're very quiet. They're not upset. Generally, a cow is not upset. And if she starts to get upset or if there's something amiss, that's when she'll start mooing and she'll start really causing a ruckus. These guys are not. They're pretty quiet, even though we're all here and we're new.
It's funny you said that, because another question that everyone is asking is, do the cows really say moo?
Oh, yes. Well, you won't hear these. You'll probably hear the calves, which is where we're going next. The calves will probably moo. Generally, cows don't moo unless there's a problem. If the cows escape their gate, or if they have a little bit of spring fever and they manage to open the gate, the rest of the cows will snitch, and they will let you know in a hurry that some of them are out and they need to get back in.
So if you can hear the cows mooing, then something's probably not right.
Right. So our cows are very content. They'll moo if there's no feed in front of them. They get pretty cranky. They get very hangry. So our baby calves, here we are at the baby calves, and we raise all our baby calves up from the time they are newborns until they are 8 weeks old, and then they are weaned from their milk, and then they move on to their next stop in our housing area. So what Emily's looking now is a baby calf who is approximately 2 weeks old. She has her own special room. She has bedding that is warm and snuggly. It is cleaned. As soon as she got into that place, it was brand new clean. There was sawdust, there was straw to keep her clean and dry. As the winter comes, we add more straw. We can actually close the curtain in the back too. You can see the grass in the back, but there's a curtain. And I've actually dropped the curtain a couple times because it's cold and windy, because baby calves are like little kids. They really have to be able to have good ventilation and nice dry environment. They don't want them to get pneumonia or to be sick. They have 2 buckets in front of them. One will have feed, a grain that's molasses based. It's like a sweet trail mix. And then they have access to water all the time too, when we're not actually giving them milk in their bucket. And our calves are fed 3 times a day as well. That's unusual. Most dairies only feed twice a day, but we have found that our calves just respond better when they have a breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Can you tell us how many calves you have there on your farm?
So I have space for 87 calves, and I currently have more than that because we have had a little population boom, a little baby boom. And so we have some babies that have to live with a roommate for a little bit. But as a general rule, calves stay by themselves to keep their germs to themselves, a little bit of social distancing before social distancing was cool. And then as they are weaned, we'll actually remove this panel here, and they'll be able to talk to each other and to learn how to become socialized with other cows before they move into a bigger group. And when the calves start, yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can you give us a little insight in this? I know we had this question earlier and someone asked again about why you take the calves away from their mothers when they're born.
Right. So first off, not every cow mom is a good mom. Some cows, they just are not very maternal, to be quite honest. They do not have an instinct that lets them care for their baby. And to keep their baby safe and secure and healthy, we will take her away from the mom just to make sure that the mom doesn't step on her, she doesn't harm her. And that way the cow can actually go back to work. Her maternity leave is before she gives birth. As soon as she gives birth, she is able to go right back into the workplace. And the baby calves stay here, almost like a nursery. And that way we can monitor them. We have a good line of sight every single day, 3 times a day, to make sure that they're feeling well. And if there's anything that's going wrong, we'll make sure that we can take care of that. So I mentioned the winter. These calves stay here all winter and summer. We have calves going through here. And in the winter, we actually give them a little blanket. And it's just like one of your Thinsulate vests or a coat. It is insulated on the inside. What it does is it helps the calves keep their body heat as long as they can. It keeps them warm, and they can continue to keep eating and grow and stay bigger and stay healthier. And when they eat one of these size bottles 3 times a day. This is a 2-quart bottle. So this is a half gallon of milk. So if you look at your half gallon of milk in the fridge, they are eating 3 of these every single day. So in the beginning, they actually use the nipple and they're just little. And then as they get bigger, we put the milk in their buckets, and it kind of speeds things up. And that's how they actually eat for the rest of their time during their stay here at the kennels. So we do, and we're able to drop the curtains in the back. We actually can pull some over the top and almost make like a little tunnel for them. So we make sure that they stay as dry and cozy as we can in the winters, which can get a little bit dicey here and a lot of wind and a lot of snow. But calves generally are very happy no matter what the temperature is. Unless it's cold and miserable and rainy, calves are very content. So today is 60, 65-ish. That's perfect calf weather. They are very happy today. Listen, yawning.
How much do those calves weigh?
So these baby calves here actually are Jersey calves, and when they were born, they were probably in the 40 to 50 pound ones. The Holsteins tend to be a little bit larger, and they're in the 80 to 100 pounds. So we do have some that are tinier and some that are bigger, but on average, that's about what we are. And they're very happy. They're content. They're running around.
We've been getting a lot of questions today about viruses. So what do you do to protect your cows and your calves from catching viruses? And a lot of people wonder, can cows get the coronavirus, COVID?
So it's actually funny you say that, because we give our calves vaccinations at birth. We give them two things. One is called a nasal, and it's almost like a flu shot, and it keeps them from getting pneumonia. And the other is called a first defense, and that is actually a coronavirus. And it is actually just a different killed virus that was made for the bovine industry instead of the humans. And so it was almost a little bit ironic when the coronavirus hit and we were already vaccinating our calves against the corona. So calves can get viruses and we have to treat them. We don't want them to be ill. We don't want them to be unhappy. We don't want them to feel bad. So we do treat them if we have to with antibiotics, just like if you took your child to the doctor. And we do make sure that they try and stay as healthy and as dry as we can. And we will treat them just like a little kid if we feel they need medicine. I'm going to keep going. So we're going to leave the kennels right now. We'll come back to that at the end for a question and answer. I want to make sure that everybody gets time to do their stations. So I know that's the best place to be, is the calf kennels, but we want to keep moving because we do have a large property. There's a lot going on. And so I think we're just going to kind of quickly, I don't hope I'm not going too fast. So this main farm here on our left is our shop, our machinery shop. We built this in 2015 after a fire destroyed our other one. We were able to build it into our specifications and put in equipment and washing stations for all of our equipment. With a farm this size, we always have machinery that needs attention if it's simple maintenance or a breakdown. So you probably won't see any machinery today because we are chopping corn at another farm. Again, we have thousands of acres in corn, and this is the time of year when we need to be harvesting it. So we probably won't see any. What? That's where Jason is. So our nutritionist is stationed over here, but we're going to talk about the feed he's going to talk about first. Also on the right, you have our original barn. This barn was built in 1908 after a fire just destroyed that after a harvest accident. And this barn has stood now, and it houses our feed and our straw for the baby calves. And then down below, it is the maternity barn where our baby calves are born. We have 3 silos, and we do store feed in the upright silos as well. We have feed stored in upright silos, and here on the right, we have what's called a bunker silo. We're going to walk quickly around those and see how big those really are. Those are actually the first structure we built. We moved here because we needed to get feed in the storage units to make sure that we had feed for our animals that are coming. And if Emily can pan straight out, you'll see our dry cows are actually out on the pasture, and they are enjoying a beautiful sunny day here in Somerset County. And they are enjoying the foliage. It is a beautiful day. They have a barn down here, so they have access to food, shelter, and water. They can also be out on the pasture and just hanging out. There's plenty of grass out there, but we do give them a nutritional mix as well.
While you're walking there, somebody wants to know how much do cows actually sleep each day?
That's a good question. I'd like to say they sleep a lot because they basically if you were to look at our activity monitors, I probably would be able to tell you that better of when their activity has slowed down some. But in general, they don't sleep real hard. They rest, they chew their cud, they redigest their food, and then they just kind of doze. But sometimes they sleep very hard, and you have to go really wake them up if you want them to stand up. So when a cow sleeps hard, she sleeps hard. But the other thing is a cow is pregnant 9 months, just as it is for a human. So that's how long it takes for a baby calf to be formed, is 9 months. So during that time, she actually has able to enjoy a little maternity leave over in this pasture before she goes back to work.
How do you know when the cows are pregnant? How do you check that?
So we actually have a veterinarian who comes once a week, and my brother-in-law, he's one of my husband's brothers is in charge of the herds and their health, and he knows exactly what animals are in what stage of their pregnancy and what stage of their lactation. And what that means is that he's able to tell exactly whether he thinks that cow is pregnant or not. Our veterinarian comes every Monday, and he actually has virtual reality glasses that he is actually able to see if a baby is actually growing.
Wow.
So it is technology that is pretty incredible. And our vet is actually here on site also, and he'll be one of the stations. So he'll be able to talk a little bit more about that also. So before we get too far away, we are standing in front of our, what we call a bunker silo. Sometimes they're called trench silos. And what that is chopped corn and chopped hay. And it does not look very appetizing right at this moment. And they like it when we mix it with other things. And Jason will be able to tell you what we're mixing into it right now, because each mix for each group of cows is different. Each casserole, that's what we like to call it, has a different amount of ingredients that keeps each cow's metabolic system in balance. And it actually takes quite a bit of math, science, and knowing exactly what stage and how fresh the feed is. It doesn't look like it's very fresh, but actually all of that feed has been packed and rolled over thousands of times by large tractors to keep it as crushed as it can to let no air in. That's what the silos are for up top, but when they're like this, you have to have someone crushing it down, and that's why there's plastic, and that's where all those tires hold all the plastic down. Okay. We're gonna loop around quick and point out this side. We're gonna loop around real quick before we go to our stations, because again, it's a big farm. There's a lot to see, and I wish you were all here in person, because I love to do a real live tour, but we'll do the best we can today. I'm just going to point out right here that this stuff here that looks really unappetizing is actually called brewer's grain. That is what is left over after beer is made. And one of the byproducts of brewing beer is the grain that is spent from that process. And we are able to actually use it in our feed mixes, and it adds a nutritional value to our feeds. Commodities are pretty cool. You can add things in like cottonseed, orange peels, cookie mixes left over from cookies that didn't get sold, chocolate, candy. Yeah. The amount of science that goes into mixing a ration is pretty incredible. And there's a lot of commodities available out there that are able to make that work. Depends on where you're located, whether it's cost efficient, and whether your cows like it. Sometimes cows don't like it. So we're going to keep walking.
Okay, are you going to head over to Jason now, or where are you taking us now, Andrea?
Yep, I'm taking you right over to Jason. He's behind the door number 1 here, which is this big building. The area where we just passed is actually where Jason does all the nutrition work, because that's where he picks up all the items that need mixed in. Well, we're going to take you to him, and he's going to talk about that.
So while you're doing that, a couple questions. I know you just mentioned this, but somebody wants to know, what are the tires for, which you did explain that a little bit, but just remind us what those tires are for there on the bunker.
So on the bunker, the only way to keep all this feed fresh, so we just spent hours and hours and months harvesting, is to cover it with plastic. So we have a very, very thick plastic. It is crazy thick. And we roll it out, literally roll out this plastic, sheets of it to cover this huge area. And the only way to hold that down, we don't want to put a hole in it because that will let air in and then we'll start to have some spoilage, is to actually cover it with tires. The tires weight down the plastic and it keeps it all as fresh as they can, because we have thousands and thousands and thousands of bushels of grain in here. We want to keep it all safe. We want to keep it all fresh. We don't want animals or birds to get into it, so we need to cover it. The only way to hold that all down is to reuse these tires, which is not attractive, but extremely efficient. And so as each section gets used, they remove the tires, they throw them back in a pile, and recycle them. So we're able to use the tires over and over again.
Awesome. Well, Andrea, I was reminded that you don't have to walk the whole way to Jason if you don't want to. We're able to just switch to him with our other crew. So
excellent.
I'll keep monitoring questions as they come in. And if there's some questions, I'm sure Jason can answer some of these questions about the feed and stuff. But we are going to transition over to the Nutritionist. And as a reminder, put those questions you have for any of our folks, the farmer, any of these career people in the live stream comment box. But our first rotation is in the commodity barn, and we're going to meet Jason Moyer, who is a nutritionist for Cargill Animal Nutrition. And the Nutritionist is a crucial partner on all dairy farms to ensure that the cows eat a healthy, balanced diet. So I want to welcome Jason and have him tell you guys a little bit about his role with Pennwood Farms. Hello, Jason.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
All right, very good. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Jason Moyer, work for Cargill Animal Nutrition. Just to give you a quick background on myself, I grew up in Bucks County, which is in eastern Pennsylvania, about an hour north of Philadelphia. My grandfather and my uncle had a dairy farm there in '98. They had sold their cows. I went on to attend Delaware Valley College. It's university now. Started out as an agronomy major. Wasn't too keen on the crop side, so I ended up switching back to dairy science. So I completed my 4-year bachelor's in dairy science at Del Val. Also took some ag business courses. After graduating college, I moved to Franklin County, Pennsylvania, sort of in the center of the state. Worked at a 700 cow dairy there for a few months with their heifer barn and everything. They ended up moving that. So found my way out west here to Somerset County. Worked for Select Sires and Coba as an AI technician for about a year and a half, and started with Cargill in 2006. So I'll be going into my 15th year here with Cargill. So just to give you a little background, we're going to get into the feed stuffs here. Andrea hit on some of these already, but if you can see, and I'm not sure how good it'll come through on the screen, but cows are a great recycler. So we look at a lot of different things. You saw the piles. There's corn silage that we would use, the haylage, and then they have the dry hay. But then in that commodity barn where the feed truck was parked, we'll have some different things. This will be called like an amino plus. So this is sort of like a soybean meal. It's a byproduct of them getting soy oil. So there's a byproduct. Andrea touched on the wet brewer's grain. That's from where they would make beer. This is the leftover grain. We mix that in as well. Distiller's grain would come from up in, this is most likely from Clearfield, Pennsylvania. Ethanol production that they use in our fuel supply. This is a byproduct of making ethanol. Candy meal. This is a favorite of a lot of folks. It smells great. It smells like candy. It is more or less ground up chunks of candy. So then they would get a mineral mix. This is what I supply to the farm is a mineral mix. And then we mix it all together. And what you see in front of the cows is what they call TMR, or total mixed ration. We do, we'll get over to that in a second, but this is here will be an example of an analysis that we do. So periodically we'll stop and test. This is their corn silage that was open pit there in the trench 1. This was chopped here about 3-4 weeks ago. We got a sample on it. You can see it gives me a lot of information to help balance moistures, protein content, energy, digestibility, some mineral contents. So that's what I enter into my program to help balance for the cows. On farm, they'll use what they call a Koster tester to dry down and check moistures, because cows eat more or less on a dry matter basis. So when Andrea said they eat, 100 pounds plus, they are actually right at about 98 pounds is what they're eating now. But when we look at that, it's going to be cows eat on a dry matter basis. They're going to eat about 50 pounds if we dried all the moisture out of all these feeds, because if you figure that all the moisture in there is just added water. So if you think of the difference between a grape and a raisin, so what we would balance on would be raisins, and they're eating grapes. So we do different things. This is a TMR shaker right here. You can see it set up down here. We'll do this periodically to check out. This is a TMR that's fully mixed. And then what I'll do is shake this out to see the difference. This is sort of to mimic what the inside of a cow's rumen would do to a feed. So we're going to have this is sort of going to lay on top in the rumen as a mat, and then she's going to digest these other ones. It'll all be digested. Their shakedown looked really good today, right? The numbers right where we want to see it. Down below there, you'll be able to see some other tools we use. One is a corn screen that we use to check particle size on corn. That was the only one I didn't have up here. They do have high moisture corn, so we'll use that. That helps us evaluate the starch availability of that corn to the cow. So after we go through all that stuff, we have it in. I'll typically discuss with Dwayne, who you guys will meet later. He's who I work typically with on the feed side. We'll discuss what he has in inventory, how much we can feed of certain, commodities, more or less the haylage and the corn silage, so we can make it through the year. And then we'll go through and try to evaluate which purchase grains are going to be the best suit for the farm. When we're evaluating that, we're going to be looking at the nutrients of those ingredients. So in a cow's mind, she doesn't really necessarily know which ingredients she's going to be eating. She wants nutrients. So she's looking for protein, she's looking for starch, she's looking for amino acids. So when we go through, she doesn't necessarily know whether she's getting amino plus or a different type of amino, but she'll know her rumen. We're more or less trying to feed the bugs in her rumen, which is eventually going to help her produce milk. So in all, I was just looked at their diet this morning. There's about 120 different nutrients that I monitor on their diet when we formulate it for the cows. So a lot of things on the computer screen that we're looking at. And then we always look at, there's more or less 4 diets that we say, and there you can see sort of the copy of the diet and how much we're feeding of everything. But there's a diet that we formulate on paper. Then there's the diet that Dwayne's going to mix for the cows. Then there's going to be a diet the cow eats, and then the diet the cow utilizes. And all 4 of those can be a little bit different. So at the end of the day, we need to find out what I predict on paper on the computer. Is that what the cow's actually doing for us? Is that's what she's getting out? So that's where the science comes in. So to evaluate that, we use different things that you'll see below. There's a manure screen that we can use to screen some manure, look at fiber digestion. They would use PC Dart, and at this farm, PC Dart and Dairy Plan as ways to monitor milk. We would be able to call in or check online where they ship milk to. They check every tank load that leaves will be checked for butter, fat, protein, and those solids and things that we can check, because that's, at the end of the day, that's how these farms get paid, is on the components they're shipping out. The fluid milk matters, but it's the percentages and the pounds of components that we ship out the door. And then from there, we also monitor component efficiency. So how many components are we eating compared to what they're how many components are they making compared to what they're eating? So also do walkthroughs in the barn. So I'll walk through the barn, and then we're looking at things like body condition, which is more or less what weight condition they're in. Are the cows skinny? Are they heavy? And then we can help adjust the ration to that. Also monitor foot health. Are we having any cows with sore feet? That's can be related to the ration. And then do we need to make adjustments to correct that if there's an issue? Also just look at cow behavior. I think somebody asked how much, the sleeping time of a cow. We want to see that cow laying ideally 11 to 13 hours a day. We'd like to see her laying in that stall. She won't be sleeping that whole time, but she will be resting. And that's when she's producing milk. So, and then I also work with Dwight, who will be Dwayne's brother, and Andrea's brother-in-law. Go over the reproduction, so find out if cows are getting pregnant, those sort of things. Cows that are calving, are they calving in with no health issues? Everything going well there. They have a foot trimmer that comes on farm once a week, more or less gives a pedicure to the cows. They trim them up. So see if they're seeing any issues there, and then any other health concerns that he may see. That's more or less what I had for that. And I'm just going to touch on real quick as far as my job in the industry. So I would work as the nutritionist / salesperson for Pennwood Farm. We have a lot of people in the background that may or may not be seen. At our mill, we would have customer service reps that take the orders, put in the orders, those type of thing. The guys at the mill make the feed. We have the truckers that bring the feed out. Managers, obviously I have managers. We have managers at the mill. We have tech service people that periodically come out here. In our area in Pennsylvania, we have Alyssa Dietrich. She's our calf and heifer. She comes out and works with Andrea on the calves. Dr. Matt Campbell, Dr. Chris Canale, Dr. Bill Brungard, Dr. Robert Fry that work with us. And depending on what issue I may have, I can reach out to those guys for technical assistance. 2 are PhDs, 2 are DVA, veterinaries. So it's a great resource for me, and that continues my learning. So I graduated college in 2004 and have continued to learn. And what we knew how to feed cows in 2004, 2006 when I started is way behind us now. There's so many different things we're looking at and things that come up every year. New nutrients we're looking at and ways of measuring things. So I think they wanted me to touch on, who would want to get into the job. If you would want to get into a job, things that you might want to do. First off, if you want to be a nutritionist, I think you have to like cows. So you got to be a cow person. The other thing, you should be a people person too, because that's my job, is working with the cows and the people both. So a college degree helps. It's not always mandatory, but it does help. Like I said, I took a degree in dairy science. Any animal science would do. And like I said, depending on what your dreams or aspirations may be, maybe, a master's of science, PhD, or a veterinary degree down the road too. So one thing I would, we do work with a growing amount of Hispanic labor in the dairy industry. So Spanish, if you're in high school now and learn Spanish, and I did take 2 years of Spanish in high school, and I didn't use it for a lot of years, so I lost most of it. So that'd be another great resource I would tell you to have. So with that, I sort of covered everything. I don't know if I went too fast or too slow, but if there's any questions, I can take them quick, Heidi.
Yeah, I think you did a great job, Jason. I appreciate you sharing all that. That's good information on if you want to be a nutritionist or have interest in that type of job. There's lots of opportunities out there. I did have a couple questions come in about the cow's feed. So not all of the feed that you feed to Pennwood cows is grown on their farm, correct?
Correct. Yes. So what we would have grown on farm would be their corn silage, their haylage, dry hay, and then they also have high moisture corn, which I don't have a sample on. But the other ingredients, the grains, will be purchased.
And is there a specific one of any of those things that the cows eat the most of?
Corn silage would be the most they would intake as far as on a forage standpoint. And on the grains, they're all about even. We're feeding, give or take 2 to 3 pounds of a lot of these different grains, and they would get a decent amount of high moisture corn. So we're in the process of making some changes. Actually talked to Dwayne. We're going to be swapping a couple of these ingredients out just because we need to feed. We're going to be a little bit tight on haylage this year with a dry summer. So we'll be upping the corn silage. We don't need that corn and the bakery quite as much, or the candy meal we had. So we're going to cut back on those and add some protein to keep that ration balance for the cows.
An interesting question that came in: does the food that the cows eat affect the taste of their milk?
I would say generally no. However, you can get, if anybody's ever mowed their yard and had garlic or onion grass, if cows do graze that, it can come through, because cows are aromatic. So more or less what they smell goes into their bloodstream, and they can transfer some of that smell through. So another reason, I know Andrea touched on ventilation in the barn. Another key reason ventilation is key. We want to keep fresh air to those cows. So as a general rule, no, we feed them candy. It's not going to taste like candy as much as we'd like to think so. But yeah, garlic and some things like that can definitely affect the flavor.
Andrea talked, this question came up when she was talking about the cows in the barn and when they chew their cud. And so somebody wondered, well, what is a cud?
So more or less what their cud is. So cows have their 4 stomachs. So what they'll do is they'll pull that feed. They were designed way back that they can eat a large meal. And then, if they would have been out on a pasture or whatever, they can eat a large meal, then they can go lay down. But they don't have to, their body doesn't have to digest that all real quick. So what they'll do is actually pull a bolus of feed back up into their mouth, and they'll chew that to make these fiber pieces. So what they're going to do, if you look at some of these longer pieces, they're going to chew these a little bit finer and then send them back down into their stomach, where they'll be digested by there's microbes in their stomach. And if you had a slide, you'll learn about that if you go to microbiology. But there's microbes in there that'll actually break down these feedstuffs in their rumen. So
it's a good thing for them to chew their cud.
Correct. Yes, we actually like to see them chewing, if they're laying down, I mean, within, as we talked about walking the cows, I'd like to see 50% chewing their cud. That sort of tells me they're feeling good. Typically, if a cow's not chewing cud and she just didn't eat or just, moving around, if they're laying down and they're not resting or sleeping, they should be chewing cud because that adds buffer. So yeah, it's sort of a way to tell, if they're feeling good and things are working right.
And how often do you come out there and visit Pennwood Farms?
So I come to see the farm probably about every 1 to 2 weeks, sometimes more often. Last couple of weeks has been probably a little bit more often. We're right in the middle of harvest. We just finished up corn silage, so we've had a lot of feed changes. But in general, about every 2 weeks I visit them, and then phone conversations in between.
Very good. Well, those of you joining us live, if you have other questions that pertain to Jason and what he does there on the farm, you can chat those in, but I think we got through most of them. So thanks a lot for joining us today, Jason.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well, farmers rely on their nutritionist to develop a well-balanced diet for their cows to eat. And Jason is just one of those many nutritionists doing an excellent job out there. So as always, we welcome those questions. Get them in. Great questions are coming through here today. We are now going to switch over and we're going to meet a special guest that was with us this morning. She's helping us out on our farm tours today. We have our PA State Alternate Dairy Princess, Katerina Kaufman. Hello, Kat.
How are you doing?
We're good. How are you?
Good. It's always lovely to come to the Stoltzfus farm and to just celebrate how beautiful Somerset County is.
Awesome. Are you going to be introducing us to our methane digester rotation, I believe?
I am. So my name's Katerina Kaufman, and like she said, I'm the Pennsylvania Alternate Dairy Princess. I'm from Huntington County, where I grew up on my grandparents' dairy farm, Tom Glow Farms, and we milk a total of 155 Holsteins. So for this presentation, we're going to talk about the methane digester, and I'm going to introduce you to Dwayne Stoltzfus. So this is Andrea's husband, and he's going to talk about how the methane digester plays a critical role on Pennwood Dairy. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dwayne.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to hearing what Dwayne has to share with us. Like she said, our next rotation is the methane digester. And while we get that mic switched over, question for those of you watching live. Do you know what a methane digester is? Do you know what it does? Well, we are going to find out. It looks like Dwayne is ready and here to answer those questions. If you guys have any thoughts on what you think it might be, go ahead and put them in that live comment stream. We'll be anxious to see what you guys think. But Dwayne, go ahead and give us some background on what the methane digester is.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining me here at Pennwood Farms this afternoon on this gorgeous fall afternoon. I just want to take one quick moment. I'm sure Andrea, my wife, has already welcomed you to Pennwood Farms, but we are happy to have you all joining us here at Pennwood Farms today. So what is a methane digester? Methane digester is basically, you can take just about any organic substance and put it in a pile or put it in a tank, in the case of here at Pennwood Farms, and put a cover on it and collect the gas that is generated off of it. So how does it work here at Pennwood Farms? The gas or the manure is all collected here. She's scanning somewhere else, but the manure is all collected through a series of gutters in this tank, right in this pit right here, and it flows via a pipe underground to that tank that she was just scanning over there. And that tank is about a 500,000 gallon tank, and it is heated. We have a series of hot water pipes in there to keep it warm. It is basically an extension of a cow's rumen. It's maintained at 101 degrees. The cover, the black cover you see on top of that tank, is sealed, and we collect the gas that is generated. And that gas is collected, and then it travels via another underground pipe all the way up to that big building there, to the left or to the right of the Freestall barn, where there is a generator. We use the generator, runs off of that gas that is generated, and produces electricity, and it also produces heat. So a gas engine produces an awful lot of heat as well. We use that heat for a large number of sources here, or items here on the farm. The first and most important one is to keep this tank warm. We do that is the most important thing to keep the thing running, is to keep that tank at 101 degrees. Other than that, Andrea and I heat our house with it. My brother and his sister-in-law, Dwight and Mel, they also heat their house with it. We heat our farm shop and a lot of the stuff, the heated areas in the parlor and the barn, Freestall barn area. So that is essentially what a methane digester does. You can do it with we can walk down here to the tank a little bit. There's not a whole lot more to see, but other than it is a large concrete tank with a cover on it. So the gas is actually collected through the white pipes right in front of her there.
So Dwayne, how much of the manure that's produced on your farm gets sent to the digester?
All of the manure in the Freestall barn goes through the digester. So, I mean, we do have other barns where dry cows and heifers are housed. That does not end up in the digester.
Okay. What got you guys, what prompted you guys to build a methane digester?
Well, that's kind of a long story, but my father-in-law is actually an electrician, and he was hounding me about, why don't you guys do this? Why don't you guys do this, for a long time? And we started to explore it. There are several other digesters in Somerset County, and I thought it was kind of an interesting idea. And of course, these systems are extremely expensive to construct, so it took quite a few years for the funding to become available.
So maybe you already said this. How many years ago did you guys put the digester in?
The digester was built in in the fall of 2010. It was operational in the spring or April of 2011. So it's been operational for almost 10 years now. So.
And you said the cost is pretty high. So are there any special grants, or do you have to get permits, and how do you go about, doing all of that stuff? Were there ways you could help offset the cost of some of that?
Yes, that is the answer to your question is both. Grants and permits involved. The cost is prohibitive without grants. Methane digesters, and it's what they consider green energy. So it's similar to windmills and solar and all that. It's kind of not really very economical unless there's tax breaks and other grants involved. That is the unfortunate part of them, because I think they're an awesome idea. But
okay.
As far as byproducts of the digestion system, obviously we talked about the generator and electric is one. We are able to generate enough electric here to run our farm and sell some electric back to the grid. The other byproduct up in that building is heat. Generators, any engine, any gas engine, any engine really makes an awful lot of heat, which we use. The other byproduct, I guess I might say, is you look over here a little bit, there's the manure comes out of the digester and goes into the separator tank, and then we pump it up to the separator. We'll walk around here and watch the separator a little bit. The separator itself is housed in that little room up there. I don't know if you can get a really good view of it, but it is nothing more than a large tomato press. I don't know if any of you are familiar with making tomato sauce out of ripe tomatoes, where you put it down in there and you turn a handle and sauce comes out and solids come out. So what we use, the liquids that are separated off go to our storage lagoon, which is then land applied and as fertilizer, and the solids come out here on this pile that we're looking at. and we actually reuse this for bedding in the Freestall barn. So, and as you can see, it's pretty solid, and it makes awesome bedding. The cows love to lay on it. And I guess that is kind of the sum of the digestion system really, really quickly. I would entertain any questions at this point, I guess.
Awesome. Well, those of you joining us live, feel free to chat those questions in the live stream comment. I don't think we've had a lot come through right now, but we'll keep monitoring that and see if we have questions that come in as we go. Did you have anything else you want to tell us about the digester, Dwayne?
Not really, other than I'm under the understanding today is kind of an ag career day type of thing. So there are opportunities in this industry. You know, it's certainly not working with cows; it's working with more equipment and stuff like that. But there are certainly opportunities. It does take. It's not a perpetual motion machine that runs on its own every day. So, and
very good.
I do spend a considerable amount of time keeping it all operational. So
are you mainly the one that manages the digester on Pennwood Farms?
Correct. Yeah. When I am away, there are a couple others that can do some get it back at least running. But yeah, I do all the maintenance and that kind of stuff. So
someone wonders if there's a smell connected to the digestion process.
A what?
A smell connected to that process.
No, actually not. The only smell that would be associated with it is biogas does smell very bad because there is a lot of sulfur in it. But when you burn it off, that is gone. So one of the advantages to a digestion system for a farm like ours is there is a noticeable odor abatement to when we land apply the manure.
Very good.
And I can honestly say neighbors of ours were not told that was what was going to happen, but they mentioned it. So it's not just something that it's not something that somebody believes because they were told that. Wow,
that's interesting.
So
that's good. So, makes your neighbors happier, I'm sure.
It does, yes. So
awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, Dwayne. We'll check on the chat and see if we get any more questions in. But somebody did wonder about the cost.
Where should I be?
Are you comfortable sharing that?
The total cost for our system was about $1.2 million.
So that is quite an investment for your farm. But
it's a considerable investment.
Yeah. Hey, well, thanks a lot, Dwayne. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you guys letting us come out there to Pennwood today, and appreciate you giving us your knowledge there with the digester.
All right.
I'm just going to give a few reminders before we hop over to our next speaker. If you haven't already, make sure you click on that red subscribe button at the top of the YouTube channel so that you can get notified of future virtual events. And if you're joining us live today, don't forget to chat those questions in the live comment stream. And then lastly, we want to remind you guys to be downloading the discussion guide so that you have access to the interactive tool that we're using. It has information on today's tours. It has additional links to some of the careers we're talking about today. And it also has a link to the Kahoot game that we are going to be playing here shortly. So you can find that in the description of the YouTube video, on the DLT Farm Tour page, or in the informational email that was sent to you prior to today's tour. So make sure you do that. Now we are going to be joining our state dairy princess, who was with us this morning as well. She was just newly crowned Pennsylvania State Dairy Princess, Gabrielle Swavely, and she's going to introduce us to our last rotation. Hello, Gabby.
Hi, Heidi. Thank you for introducing me again. As Heidi said, I am Gabrielle Swabley, the 2020-2021 Pennsylvania Dairy Princess. I currently reside in Center County, Pennsylvania, where I go to school at Penn State, and I milk at the Reproductive Dairy Farm twice a day. We milk about 100 cows. I did not grow up on a dairy farm. My mom grew up on her family's dairy farm, and she passed the love of dairy farming on to me. The love of dairy farming in our family is 4 generations strong. After my mom moved off the farm, I thought it was important to continue her legacy and follow in her footsteps that she left. I decided to start working on the drive with this dairy farm, and I use my platform to tell people that they don't need to grow up on a dairy farm to be part of this industry because there's a place for everyone here. The last speaker of the day is Bill Krauscher, who is the farm vet here, and he does all of the IVF work. So I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Bill.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabby. We're excited to finish our day with Dr. Krauscher in the surgical suite. As Gabby mentioned, something called IVF. So we're going to give you an opportunity while they're getting the mic passed over. Let us know, what is IVF? Do you know what the letters stand for? Do you know what it means? If you don't, that's okay, because Dr. Bill is here and he is going to tell us all about it. Welcome.
Hi.
Go ahead. Let us know what you do at Pennwood Farms and what you do with the IVF program.
Okay, so my name is Dr. Bill Krauscher. I'm a veterinarian. I lived here in Somerset County for just about 20 years. And about 8 years ago, we embarked on a project to produce offspring, more offspring through some of their elite cows here at Pennwood Dairy. So it's a very long, complicated process. It's part of a field called embryology. So we first we have to collect the eggs, or the technical term for them are oocytes, from the donor cows. The farm here picks the cows that they want us to do that for. We do a procedure called ovum pickup. It's abbreviated OPU. Once we recover the eggs directly from the cow's ovary, then they have to go through a processing before we can do anything with them. So I will collect them into a tube that looks just like this. And then we bring them into a lab. We actually have a mobile trailer that we pull around from farm to farm. Once the collected oocytes are brought into the lab, my technicians, I have 2 of them. One is in the lab, one helps me cow side. They will pour out the contents of this through a filter, clean it up, rinse the filter into a dish, and then search that dish under a microscope. Once they are processed and cleaned and washed, then we load them into a special media, into an incubator, and they're actually shipped by UPS overnight to a lab in Madison, Wisconsin, where they'll do the fertilization, and they'll culture the embryos for a week and then send them back for transfer. So I'll demonstrate here just exactly what we do. Jenny is going to actually be doing the scope work. We've got a couple of things to show you. First, on the oocytes. So we're going to pull the fluid out of the cow's ovaries, and they're going to collect in this tube. Jenny's going to rinse them through a filter, and then rinse the filter into this dish right here that's on the microscope, and then through the scope. And you can probably see better on the computer there. But Jenny's going to run through this dish, and you can see there's big lines that are running through this dish. Those lines are just to help us keep track of where we are, where we've been, so that we don't miss any of the oocytes. And she's picking them up right now. They kind of look a little bit fuzzy, furry, and that's how they're supposed to look. So after she picks them out of the initial search dish, then we're going to move them to a wash process. So right now she's dumping them out into a first wash, and if you want to get a picture of the laptop, we can zoom in on them a little bit. And those are the oocytes. And there's kind of a round clear center to them. And then around there's a layer of cells. Those are called cumulus cells. We want to protect those cumulus cells. We want to keep those on the egg itself. So we're going to gently wash those so that we can remove any debris, any contaminants. We're going to run them through a series of 3 washes, and then they will be loaded in a very special media that allows them to actually prepare themselves to be fertilized the next day at the lab. So these eggs that we look at right now are not ready to be fertilized. They have to go through a process over 24 hours. That's going to happen in an incubator that is going to, the temperature is going to be kept at 38.5 degrees centigrade, which is 101 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the body temperature of the cow. And then inside this incubator, there's a spot for tubes. And then the eggs would be in those tubes. They'll be kept at body temperature. And when they get to the lab tomorrow, they'll be ready to be fertilized. We also have some embryos that are actually alive. And Jenny's going to demonstrate how we retrieve them from the tube. So after a week, the eggs got fertilized, they got cultured, and then once the eggs are ready to be transferred into recipient or surrogate animals, Jenny can pull them directly out of the tube, right up into the pipette. And then if you see the laptop screen there, we're going to dump them out from the pipette, and they're going to dump directly into the dish. So we're going to zoom in on those and have a look at them, see if they're any good, see what quality they are. So we got a really neat one right there in the middle. That's an embryo, and that's an embryo that's actually trying to hatch out of essentially its shell. So there's the embryo there on the bottom. It's really clear looking. That means it's advanced in development. And sticking out of the top of it at about 2 o'clock, there's the embryo actually trying to squeeze out through the shell. That embryo is very much alive and very much trying to get out of that confining structure called a zona pellucida. And once it gets out of there and we put it in the uterus, and we'll transfer it into the uterus of a recipient cow, just like that, it'll eventually work its way out. It'll tell the recipient animal that it's there through some chemical and hormonal signals, and she'll become pregnant. So you might wonder why a farm would want to do something as complicated and expensive as this. Farmers are always trying to improve the livestock that they have. And if you figure that a female, a cow, she can only have a single live calf a year at most. But she may be the best cow on the farm, and they may have another 300 or 400 cows that are not as good as she is. So what we try and do is to allow those lower genetic potential cows be surrogates for the best cow's calf. In the process of doing this, we can rapidly improve the genetic merit of the herd as a whole, and hopefully make the farmer, allow the farmer to make more milk or more meat, and have a more profitable operation.
Interesting. So can you tell us what exactly IVF stands for?
So IVF is just an abbreviation for in vitro fertilization. So that means the eggs, the oocytes that we just looked at on the screen, are going to be fertilized by sperm inside a dish in a laboratory. And they will have to be cultured for a week, and then they're ready to go back into recipients. But that's what it means, in vitro fertilization.
And somebody wonders how many healthy oocytes are collected from each cow that you culture.
So there's a very wide range. The average number of oocytes that we recover from a donor is about 18. But the range is anywhere from 2, as I think is the lowest number we've ever got, to we've gotten as many as 115 out of a single donor. But the average, some people like to say, is where the best of the worst meets the worst of the best. The average is 18, but the range is very, very wide.
And is this something that hurts the cow when you do this?
No, so we, on cows are fairly tolerant of this. We'll give them an epidural shot of lidocaine, which numbs their back end, and they really don't feel anything. I mean, they don't look forward to it, but it's not something that really hurts them. The potential risks to the donor are very low. We've had a couple of younger heifers that have had some complications, but we've performed well over 3,000 of these collections, and the complication rate's very, very low.
Very good. So besides doing this IVF work with Pennwood, are you also their veterinarian that takes care of the cows on a regular basis?
So our practice has 2 veterinarians, myself and Dr. Dan Zawissa, and Dr. Dan does most of the, I guess, clinical work per se, the reproduction work here, and a lot of the, if there's any sick cows that need to be minded, he takes care of that. But I do, probably 3 or 4 times a year, come out and do the repro check, and occasionally if they have a sick cow or a cow that needs surgery or a cow that needs help delivering a calf, I'll come out and help out.
So what does your average day look like as a veterinarian?
My average day, I don't really have an average day. It's every day is kind of different, and that's kind of how I like it. You know, we travel a lot because this IVF work that we do, it's very technical work. There's not a lot of people that do it. And in order for my practice to actually be profitable at it, we have to have a lot of donors, a lot of donor cows in any given day. So we travel anywhere from Western New York to Eastern Shore of Maryland, and pretty much anywhere in between. So my average day, you know, I'll arrive at the office about an hour before we leave. We usually drive 2 hours, sometimes 4 hours to the farm to do the collections. Spend about 4 or 5, sometimes 6 hours doing the collections, processing the eggs, drop the incubator off at UPS, and head home. It makes for some pretty long days, but you know, I like it. It's challenging. It's different. No 2 days are the same. So I guess I don't really have an average day. Okay.
What's your favorite part about being a vet?
I think the science, really. It's the science is absolutely fascinating, and what we're learning about animals, and kind of what makes them run, and what makes them healthy, and what makes them reproduce, and how all of the little things fit together. And we know a lot about them now. We know more than we knew 20 years ago, but we're going to know a lot more in 20 years to come. This is an evolving field. It always is. But the science, to me, is I think that's what keeps me going, and interacting with the farmers. You know, I love working with farmers. That's why I don't work on dogs and cats. They are common sense, salt of the earth people. They have an absolutely critical role in growing food for our society, and I love working with them.
That's great. What kind of schooling and training did you need to become a vet?
So as far as veterinary medicine goes, anybody who wants to go to veterinary school is going to have to get a 4-year degree first, a 4-year bachelor's degree usually. And then veterinary school is another 4 years. It's a doctoral program. So my undergraduate degree actually is in pharmacy. And that was a 5-year program at the time when I graduated pharmacy school in 1992. And then veterinary school was another 4 years. So it's a lot of time, and it's an awful lot of expense. So it's not for the faint of heart. If you don't like school and you don't absolutely love science, I would probably scratch that one off your list.
That's good advice. What are some key skills that you would say you need to be a vet?
First and foremost, without a doubt, is the ability to communicate, both verbal and writing. Communication skills that is the thing that separates successful veterinarians, doctors, lawyers, or anything from the unsuccessful. I could be the best surgeon in the world. I could fix the sickest animals, but if I can't communicate with a client about what went wrong and how to prevent it and how to treat it and how to move on, whatever I do is going to be in vain. I like to think I'm a competent surgeon and a competent clinician, but I think my communication skills are probably one of my strongest suits, and that is absolutely the most important part of being a veterinarian, both writing and verbal.
Very good. I have one more kind of career related question, and then we have had some questions come in the chat that I have for you. So do you need to grow up in the dairy industry to have your job?
Absolutely not. I did not grow up on a dairy farm. My uncle, my dad's brother, raised about 20 head of Herefords when I was a kid, and eventually sold the mama cows and would finish out a few steers from time to time. And that was kind of where I got my appetite whet for agriculture. But I did not grow up on a dairy farm. In fact, there's a lot of people who work in agriculture and dairy who did not have any experience at all as a kid on a dairy farm. Now, certainly the folks that grew up with dairy, they know it the best, but it is not a prerequisite. I have a colleague I know in Wisconsin whose parents were immigrants from Poland. She grew up in the city, in the middle of the city in Chicago, Illinois, and she is now a very successful veterinarian, a dairy veterinarian in Wisconsin. So I would say if anybody, don't let being, not growing up with an agriculture background, don't let that dissuade you from pursuing this, or at least looking at it.
Absolutely. The opportunities are endless. So just a couple questions here. Somebody wonders, do any cows reproduce naturally? So I don't know if you want to give any insight on kind of that thought process on farms and why they do what they do.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Most cows, beef cows and dairy cows, are not part of this process. The majority of beef cattle in this country are bred naturally by a bull. There are still some dairy cows that are bred naturally by a bull. There are some beef cows where the farmers have elected to breed them exclusively, or at least some of them, through a process called artificial insemination. And it's not nearly as complicated and expensive as this. The majority of the dairy cows bred in this country are bred through artificial insemination. That's very reasonably priced. And it's essentially, you introduce the sperm into the cow's uterus that's been frozen. There's a process. You just deposit some thawed out sperm into a cow's uterus, and hopefully she gets pregnant. This IVF process and embryo transfer, I guess in general, is reserved for only the most elite cows. It's quite expensive, and it's a little bit of a gamble. It doesn't always result in pregnancies. So the farmer has to have a really very valuable cow to want to try and do this.
So with either IVF or with the artificial insemination process, can you control the gender of the calf?
We absolutely can. There are machines called a flow cytometer that can sort the X sperm, which is going to turn into a female, from the Y sperm, which would turn into a male. They run the sperm through a process. They send it through the flow cytometer, and they can pick with whatever accuracy they want to choose, what percentage of the calves are going to be female or male. That was the innovation that made this in vitro fertilization process commercially an option, because, like I said, it's quite expensive. And if you could select for more female calves through this process, it makes it adds a lot of value to it, enough so that more and more people started doing it.
An interesting question that came in: when the fertilized eggs are put in surrogate cows, does the host cow pass any of her genetics to the embryo?
The surrogate will not. All of the genetics from the calf that is in the surrogate comes from the donor cow. 100%. There is no transfer of any genetic traits at all from the surrogate or the recipient cow to the developing calf.
Okay. Do you know, and maybe you mentioned this earlier, but what percentage of the cows at Pennwood actually go through this IVF program?
About 1%. Yeah, it's about 1%.
Okay,
yeah,
so they
it's
have
a very low number. They have to be very, very elite animals.
Okay, so they have some sort of process they use to decide which cows they really want to be a part of this.
Yes, yeah, and there's a lot of science behind donor selection. You should justify it economically, so that either these calves that we're going to make are going to improve their herd that much, or they may elect to market some of these offspring to other farmers. So that is an absolutely key part of the equation on which cows get this procedure done.
Okay. One last question for you before you go. What is the biggest challenge in your job?
I think the economics of it for me, I have a hard time honestly balancing my checkbook. So I am a partner in my practice. I'm a small businessman. That stuff does not excite me, and I recognize that I have to run a profitable practice for me to stay in business. That is the most challenging part of this for me. It is what it is. I don't like that part of it. I'm not a businessman. I like to kind of get out and get my boots dirty. But it's a necessary evil, and we try and do our best.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you joining us today and giving us your insight and showing us what they do there at Pennwood with the IVF program. So thank you so much, Dr. Crushore. Again,
Great, thank you.
Thanks for coming. If
Thanks.
you have other questions for him, please feel free to put those in the live comment stream. We're going to be about wrapping up here. So just a couple reminders. If you didn't get the discussion guide downloaded, do that, because that's where you're going to find the link to our Kahoot that we're going to play here in just a few minutes. Don't forget, you can find that discussion guide in the description of the YouTube video, on the DLT Farm Tour page, www.dairyleadersoftomorrow.com, or in the informational email that was sent to you prior to today's tour. So with that, I think we are ready to go back and join Andrea. We appreciate the chance to tour Pennwood Farm today, learn about a few key people that work there with the Stoltzfus family, like their veterinarian that we just talked to, and Jason Moyer, who's their nutritionist. And additionally, we enjoyed exploring what a methane digester does and how it is an amazing machine that processes manure and turns it into bedding and electricity and heat. So Andrea, thank you so much for letting us tour your farm today. We've had a wonderful time learning. Is there anything you'd like to share with us as we wrap up here today?
I just wish you could have all been here today, because it is such a fabulously gorgeous day out here in Somerset County. It is just the best day possible for this tour. I'm so thankful that everyone tuned in. I hope you had a chance to enjoy our property and our farm and some of our stories that we told, and take something home from that. And remember that there's so much more to a farm, any type of a farm, than what what you see when you just drive by. There's all these little pieces of the puzzle that make it work. Is there any more questions from any of the people out there, Heidi? Is there any other questions that have come in that I can help with?
That's what I was just looking through here a little bit. Couple people, yeah, we had a few questions maybe you can answer yet. Someone wanted to know, what is the average size of a cow?
Okay, so we talked about a calf being born anywhere from 40 to 100 pounds, but the size of a cow, these older ladies that are out in this pasture right here, they are getting close to 1,900 pounds. So that's 1,900 pounds. These are bigger animals. They're older animals, and they are fully mature. So they have a lot more size to them. Some of the animals we saw in the Freestall earlier, they are closer to 900, 1,100 pounds maybe. And again, every animal is different. So their genetics makes up a big decision as to what size they get to, and of course their nutrition and their housing and all those play a factor. But these ladies here are pretty big, and there have been some pretty big cows that are even bigger than that. We do have some older animals here that are very large cows.
And how many calves does a cow typically have in her lifetime?
So generally a cow will only have one calf at a time. Twins are unusual, but not unheard of. And there are actual cases of triplets being born. That's not unheard of. Also, it is rare. So they generally have one cow. One cow will have one calf every year. Generally, they will have 5 or 6 in their lifetime, because remember, they had to be 2 years old before they actually had their first calf. So that gives them up to 8, 9, 10 years of age. So that gives her a lot of offspring for us to build our herd on and to build up her family tree.
That's great information. Somebody wants to know, what happens to the cows when they stop producing milk?
So our cows here, they are provided the best lifestyle we can give them while they're producing milk. If they reach a point in their life where they must leave our farm, they are generally sold. They are sold to either a sale barn or other farmers. We've had many, many sales to other farmers who enjoy our pedigrees and our offspring and our animals' breeding line. So they want to make sure that they have a chance to actually have some of that in their herds as well.
And then somebody wonders, are the cows ever milked by hand?
So we try not to do that because, 600 cows milking by hand would take a long, long time. Remember, it only took between 3 and 5 minutes to milk an animal out. So if we were to milk them all by hand in an emergency, that would not be good. But one of the bonuses of our methane digester is that even if the power goes out, we are able to tap into that generator and actually have power so that we are able to keep milking and keep our milk cool. So those are the two most important things when the power goes out on a dairy farm, is you want to be able to keep your milk cool, and you want to be able to make sure that the milking system still is in operation, so you don't have to do that.
Yes, milking 600 cows by hand would definitely be a chore.
Yes.
A question that had come in earlier, and I got two kind of the same. So, like when the cows are moving from that freestall area and going into the carousel parlor, how do they know like where they need to go, and how do you train them to know how to get onto the carousel and off the carousel?
So we like to say that once is a habit with cows, and it can be a good habit or a bad habit. If a cow learns that she can escape out of a hole in the fence, she will do that every single time until you can repair the fence. But if they know that they are going to the same holding area to be milked the same time almost every single day, and when I say almost, it's because sometimes they may run a little bit later in the day as they move from group to group, they make that their habit. And so they know that when an employee starts walking through their group, that they need to stand up, step out of their stall, and start walking to the group, and they will follow the herd. They're a herd animal. And so when the leader starts walking to the parlor, the rest will follow. And that is the same sort of mentality that can be good or bad. Remember that if they break out of the fence, if the leader goes, then the rest will go too. So you want, and then they're all quiet. They all know that that's what their job is. Their job is to go to the parlor, be milked, and come back and have a snack and lay down.
So it doesn't take much to get them to learn that process.
Absolutely not. So when we have a cow that might give birth for the very first time, she might take a day or two to become used to the routine. But because we do have a routine that is the same thing every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days, they learn very quickly that that's what the routine is going to be. And that's how they will just smoothly segue right into the herd.
Very good. I'm just reading some things that came in here. These questions kind of pertain to what we were talking about with Dr. Crushore, but how long does it take to collect the eggs from each cow? I'm not sure if you know the answer to that or not.
So I think I can take a stab at that. It takes, it depends on the animal herself, the age of the animal. The bigger the animal is, the easier it is to work around that animal. But Dr. Crushore is pretty smooth now, and he actually has a very short time frame that he actually gets set up, collects the eggs, and they're ready to go on to the next step. So if they really would like to know more about that, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer that question specifically, but I know it does not take long. It's a very smooth collection process.
Okay. This is an interesting question, and maybe you can even speak into some other things with this question, but somebody wonders about cow surgeries. I think they're probably referring to that IVF process, but do you have a special place maybe for sick cows or like a sick hospital, or, if cows do need surgery, what happens to them? Do they stay right there on the farm, or how does that work?
Right. So the reason we actually built that part of our building for Dr. Crushore to use as his surgical suite is so that we could use it as a surgical suite too, in case an animal did need some sort of a surgery. So cows actually have 4 parts to their stomach. You can't say they have 4 stomachs, but they have more than one. And sometimes that one of those parts may get a little bit out of order, or it may actually have a twist. And so probably the most common surgery, unfortunately, for cows is what we call a DA, which is a displaced abomasum. It means that basically their stomach is twisted. And Dr. Crushore can actually put the animal in that chute right there, perform the surgery while she's standing up, and she has anesthesia. Of course, she can't feel anything. And that way it stays clean. He is able to work safely, and the animal is able to be released back into her pen quickly. And she has had a very an experience that will keep her healthier faster, will help her heal. So that is exactly why we built that, is so that any surgeries that took place could take place in there. Sometimes an animal might get hurt and she might need a stitch or two. We can still load them into that chute, and they're immobilized, and they're safer for the vet to actually suture those stitches back up again.
Very good. Well, that's all the questions that I had for you. I don't know if you have any closing comments you wanted to make to those that are joining us.
I do not in particular. I'm so thankful that so many people were interested today to follow both my farm and Vicky's farm. I think both of the farms have so many different things in common, and yet we're so unique that it is great that everybody had a chance to learn about these 2 particular operations. There's so many dairies in the country that all have a special thing that they do, and to know that each farmer is working so hard to produce the best safe possible food source and to take the best care of their animals no matter where they live, that's an important lesson everybody can learn, no matter whether you're in Southwest Pennsylvania, the northern reds of Maine, or anywhere out in the Midwest too.
Absolutely. Well, once again, we just want to thank you guys for hosting us there at Pennwood. Your farm and your family are beautiful, and it was just a pleasure learning more about what you guys do there. As we wrap up, once again, I do want to thank our sponsors. We'll get a slide up here, I believe, that shows them. Hydrate and Zoetis. Of course, these tours would not be possible without the sponsorships that we have. So we thank Hydrate and Zoetis. Both of these companies do have incredible job opportunities and careers in the dairy industry. So if you're looking for a job in the industry, make sure you check them out. And also don't forget that if you have not already clicked on the red subscribe button at the top of our YouTube channel, we would like you to get notifications when we have future virtual events. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right. Last thing we're going to do for the day is we're going to have a little quiz here and see if we can recap and see what we remember from our tour there at Pennwood Farms. So we are going to launch a Kahoot. I'm going to let that happen here and go ahead and give you guys a few minutes to get situated and entered in there with your screen names and such.
Yeah, they're doing the quiz now. Let's see how many players we have.
We're still waiting on some players to join us. We have about 8 questions here. Like I said earlier, if you download the, oh, it looks like we have players joining us now. If you download the discussion guide, especially for you teachers out there, you'll want to download that discussion guide because we do have a more in-depth Kahoot that recaps these tours. But just for fun here at the end of this, we're going to just go through about 8 questions and get some winners, see who was paying attention and following along. All right, well, we're still getting a few people here, so I'll just wait a few more seconds. Let's go ahead and launch that. We'll start with that now. We have about 50 folks playing with us. All right, our first question on our Kahoot here for Pennwood Farms. Here we go. When did the Stoltzfus family start milking cows? When did the Stoltzfus family start milking cows? So our choices are in 1962, in 2006, in 1999, or in 2015. Think about what Andrea said there when she was giving us kind of the background on the Stoltzfus family and how they made their way to Southwest PA. You have about 30 seconds to answer that, so get your answers in. When did the Stoltzfus family start milking cows? Looks like we almost have everybody in. A few more seconds. If you don't remember, take your best guess. All right, hopefully, all right, looks like the majority of you got that right. 1962 is when the Stoltzfus family started milking cows. We'll see here who is the leader of our winner board after this first question. It looks like Olivia. Way to go. Okay. Question number 2. How many cows do they milk on this farm? Andrea also shared this. We said it quite a few times. How many cows do they milk on this farm? Our choices are 20, 600, 78, or 800. How many cows do they milk? And actually, she just talked about that a little bit there when somebody had asked about milking by hand. So think back to what she said. How many cows they'd have to actually milk by hand? Was it 20, 600, 78, or 800? You have a few more seconds to get your answers in. A few more seconds. Very good. Looks like most of you remembered that one. 600 cows they milk at the Stoltzfus farm. We'll check out our leaderboard here after question 2. Hi, join to the top. Okay, there we go. All right, question number 3. Question number 3, this would have come from the beginning of the tour. Name 2 advantages to milking in a rotary parlor. So when Andrea was showing us the parlor there, she said it's kind of like a merry-go-round. That's the rotary parlor. What were 2 advantages? It's cheaper to build. It was less walking by the milker. It was cheaper to maintain, or quick entry and exit times for the cows. So 2 advantages. So you'll want to pick 2 answers for this one. Was it cheaper to build, less walking by the milker, cheaper to maintain, or quick entry and exit times for the cows? Make sure you pick 2 for that one. You have a few more seconds to get your answers in. All right. See how we did here. Looks like most of you picked the correct two. Less walking by the milker and quick entry and exit time for the cows. Very good. Very good. All right, let's check our leaderboard. Stinky Cheese made it to the top. All right, nice name there. Question 4. Why is IVF, remember that's our last rotation, IVF, why is that used on this farm? Did he say it was to improve genetics because it cost less? Was it to maximize pregnancy rates? Or was it to have multiple calf births? So think about the things he talked about and why they actually use IVF on this farm. Was it to improve genetics, cost less, maximize pregnancy rates, or have multiple calf births? You have a few more seconds to get your answers in. That was a little tricky. He said that they only pick certain cows because of those genetics, and they want those genetics to be passed on. So it was about the genetics, not the cost. Definitely wasn't the cost, he said, and they don't want multiple calf births, and it wasn't about maximizing pregnancy rates. So that was a tricky one. All right. Leaderboard shows us Ms. Butler moved up. All right. Question number 5. Name an advantage in treating sick animals at this farm. Name an advantage in treating sick animals at this farm. So this was brought up in that one question we just went over at the end. Is an advantage there's an individualized treatment in a separate hospital barn? Was it that treated milk is pasteurized, which repurposes the milk to feed calves? Was it that there's separate milking facilities, or is it all of the above? An advantage in treating sick animals at this farm. A few seconds left. Very good. Most of you got that correct. You were paying attention. There were several advantages to treating sick animals here. So, all right, let's check that leaderboard and then we'll move on to question 6. Miss Butler has stayed at the top. Okay, number 6. What are the end products? Oh, this is double points. What are the end products in methane digestion at this farm? So Dwayne went over those end products with us. He gave us a few, so you can have more than one answer on this one. What were the end products in methane digestion at this farm? Was it bedding? Was it fuel? Was it electricity? Or was it heat? The end products of methane digestion. There's 2 specific, although I wonder if it couldn't actually be 3 of them. 2 specifically we're looking for. You have a few more seconds. Get those answers in. Yeah, a lot of you picked heat because he did talk about that, but we were looking for bedding and electricity, which both had 33 of you guessing that. So, all right, let's go to the next one. Oh yeah, let's check our leaderboard. Miss Butler, staying right up there. Maybe that's our classroom. They're all helping each other out. Number 7. multiple selections on this one as well. What are the ways the cows are kept comfortable in the Freestall barns at this farm? What are the ways the cows are kept comfortable in the Freestall barns at this farm? Back scratchers? Was it fans? Was it bedding? Or was it misters? There's actually several on this one that you can choose. Back scratchers, fans, bedding, or misters. About 30 seconds yet. All right, those were the three. So it looks like most of you got at least two of the three, fans, bedding, and misters. Very good. We'll check our leaderboard once more. And then we have one more question. All right, Ms. Butler, her class is staying right up there. Okay, question 8, last question. Andrea talked about this when she gave some background information on the farm and who helps run the farm. Which brothers work on a farm? And there's a really nice picture of the Stoltzfus family. Which brothers work on the farm? Is it Don, Dwight, Dwayne, Glenn? You can have multiple answers on this one. Maybe this is a trick question a little bit. Which brothers work on the farm? Don, Dwight, Dwayne, and Glenn. You have a few more seconds. Get your answers in. Most of you got Dwight and Dwayne because she talked about them, but she did say in the beginning that Pennwood Farms is a partnership between all 4 of the brothers. So Don, Dwight, Dwayne, and Glenn, it's a partnership between all 4 of them. All right, let's check our leaderboard. We'll see who our winners were for this Kahoot. Looks like 3rd place is Stinky Cheese. 2nd place is Annabeth Chase. And 1st place is Ms. Butler. I'm assuming that's maybe a classroom somewhere. So congratulations to all of you. Like I mentioned, if you want a fuller version of a Kahoot, we do have that available with the discussion guide. So make sure that you check that out. If you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can be notified of future virtual events. Make sure you check out our website, www.dairyleadersoftomorrow.com, to find out more about our education program that you can use in your classroom. We have scholarship opportunities and additional on-farm opportunities like this. We hope you guys had a great day. We appreciate you being here. Once again, there are our sponsors, Zoetis and Hydrate. Thanks to the Pennwood family for the tour this afternoon, and to the Baker family from Maple Bottom Farm for our tour this morning. If you didn't see that, you can check out the video on the YouTube channel. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for joining us.